Born in 1941 in Osaka, Japan, Tadao Ando has become a highly influential figure in architecture and represents the epitome of Eastern values meets Western ideas. What's so fascinating about Ando is that he is self-taught and that he has been able to develop a highly articulated architectural language that has been present in his work from the beginning of his career. Ando worked as a truck driver and as a professional boxer. He was moved by Frank Lloyd Wright's Imperial Hotel in Tokyo his second year of high school. In high school, he found he liked to sketch, and he attended drawing school. Ando didn't go to a university after finishing high school. Between 1962 to 1969, he traveled to the United States, Europe, and Africa, learning about Western architecture, history, and techniques. He visited buildings designed by architects like Le Corbusier, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, Frank Lloyd Wright, Adolf Loos, and Otto Wagner. In 1969, Ando returned to his hometown at the age of 28 and established his architectural practice, Tadao Ando Architects and Associates. Ando's career began with designs for small houses in overcrowded urban spaces of Japan. He worked only on residential projects for the first 15 years of his career, designing spaces in which people live. This allowed Ando to develop his views about materialness and the idea of having empty space that can stand alone. He emphasizes that excess is unnecessary and superficial by creating spaces that allow ordinary people to live with only the things that are essential to human dwelling, an ideal that is valued by Ando and the Japanese culture that he comes from. His view is that contemporary man, faced with an abundance of consumer goods, needs void in nature. But both void and nature will themselves be quickly devoured by consumer goods if they remain on a material plane. They must be essential. Ando therefore tries to choose materials as a poet chooses words and to give the most appropriate forms of expression. Using nature as a material palette, his projects use concrete cast walls, wood, glass, and steel, as well as light, water, and wind. The building connects to nature through materiality, sight, exterior courtyards, and light. Recurring themes of emptiness, nature, spirituality, light and darkness, and pure geometry appear throughout his architecture. It is not that Ando feels no need to reinvent what he had already done before. The notion of reiteration, as we shall see, is far more important to him than that. Ando's breakthrough success was with the row house in Sumiyoshi in 1975 to 1976. Ando received the 1979 award for the Architectural Institute of Japan for this house, which is one of his best-known early works and the one that made his work famous. The site is surrounded on all sides, looking internally instead of to the public street. Ando does this to create views inside the house looking out to nature, undisturbed by the urban noise. From the street, there is only one punched opening on the facade leading to the entry. It is a highly articulated, solid concrete wall with evenly spaced form ties that give a pattern to the smooth, finished surface. The house stands on a tight urban plot and has a long, narrow, symmetrical plan. The house is divided into 3 equal parts, with the central part being the atrium. The space nearest the doorway contains a living room at ground level and a bedroom above. The final space contains a kitchen and a bathroom below, and the master bedroom above. The courtyard is the center of everyday life, and each room is accessed from the courtyard. There is a pathway that intersects the courtyard to connect the bedroom and the master bedroom on the upper level. Ando has stated, "The row house became the prototype for my architecture and corroborated for me the equivalence between aesthetics and the way one lives." The Shino House, constructed from 1980 to 1984, exhibits dynamic space created through contrast between open and closed, solid and void, and light to darkness. This house collects all fragments of Ando's architectural vocabulary. 2 boxes are linked by an underground corridor that allows slithers of light to penetrate through vertical openings adjacent to the courtyard. The smooth concrete around the step courtyard seems to float, open to the sky, while the openings along the wall facing the courtyard create points of intersection between light and shadow. A staircase leads downward from the entrance to a spacious living room. In the Cochino house, there is a series of spaces in which light and shade are contrasting dynamic sequences to inject complexity and depth into fundamentally static places. Everything is in an inorganic place, ruled by geometrical order. Into this, light penetrates. By that light, one can experience the motions of the sun, the moon, and the earth. It was in this work that Ando encountered light. Today's residential spaces may be quite comfortable and functional, but a house into which nature has been introduced is more suitable for man and is more true to the basic character of the house. The courtyard is an important place where seasonal changes can be directly perceived through the senses. The expression of nature changes constantly. Sunlight, wind, and rain affect the senses and give variety to life. Architecture in this way becomes a medium by which man comes into contact with nature. Ando believes that there shouldn't be a distinction between the way we design our homes from the way we design churches. The home should be a spiritual place. Of Ando's residences, Cochino exemplifies the characteristics of a spiritual place the most through its expansive space, connection to nature, and emotion-evoking spaces that use pierced light through dimly lit spaces. Ando's most remarkable works are certainly the religious buildings. One of his most amazing churches is one of his simplest. The Church of Light from 1988 is located in a residential suburb in Osaka. It consists of a rectangular concrete box intersected at a 15 degrees angle by a freestanding concrete wall. The bisecting wall causes the visitor to turn to enter the chapel. Entering the building requires a procession and an awareness. Ando talks about his principle of bringing incompatible things together in a way so that the two opposites collide, resulting in an almost violent collision. Out of that, the true nature of things manifests and underlying problems are clarified. When incompatible elements come in contact with each other, each of them takes on an even greater existence, and through this he is able to make each place even more dynamic. The floor descends in stages towards the altar, whose horizontal and vertical openings form a cross, flooding the space with light. Though Ando's plans and compositions are usually simple and logical, movement within the building develops in meandering ways as to allow a person to discover. One of Ando's major concerns is unraveling a degree of complexity within a simple plan. The Modern Art Museum of Fort Worth, built in 2002, uses various circulation paths while still being wide open enough so that a person does not become disoriented. Ando's pure geometry, expansive spaces, and repetition are themes found in modernism that make it appropriate for a museum of modern art. Ando's social spaces make use of large open space to create an architecture of silence that allows the user to reflect and feel at ease. Utilizing emptiness releases the intensity of the introspective experience. Emptiness, or the voided void, becomes silence in response to the viewer's inner self. External experience becomes internal experience. The large glass walls are met by a reflecting pool that extends one's experience from inside the building to nature through the use of water. Tadao Ando exhibits an extensive body of architectural work that includes residences, shops, religious, museums, educational, office buildings, libraries, and others. He's able to produce building after building. Since Ando's design method and building techniques have been worked and reworked over time, he's able to quickly conceptualize a project. His ideas about architecture have been carried out through all the projects he's designed. So when a client requests a building from Ando, they understand his body of work and know what kind of building they want. Such purity and essentiality, one might be forgiven for thinking, must surely have called for an unusual degree of truth to principles and therefore very few opportunities to work. But that is not what comes to mind when we consider the enormous amount of work Ando has done since the mid-70s. Now we find him at the top of his profession, completing building after building with astonishing speed, able to do so by falling back on the design and conceptual procedures he had worked out in earlier researches.